Welcome to another edition of our Canvas and Instructure live streams. Today we are highlighting the Center for Leadership and Learning and one of my all-time favorite sessions. We have new guests today. We also have a new host today. So I'm going to turn things over to Marcus Painter, who is part of our Center for Leadership and Learning. Let him introduce himself, as well as Dr. David Timbs. Dr. David Timbs is one of my all-time favorite people from Tennessee there in Johnson City Schools. We did an entire, if you want to check those out, those will all be down. I'll link those below. We did an entire digital learning day with Dr. David Timbs and his schools there. It was fantastic. I enjoyed that day thoroughly. I talk about it all the time.
They still talk about it too.
That's good. We've made an impact, but we've got a lot of people joining us. We are doing an Ask an Administrator session. So as you have questions upcoming on the new year, please make sure to put those in the comments below. I'll kind of man things on the back end. I'm turning it over to my good friend in the other half of the Canvas casters, Marcus Painter, to get this session started.
All right. Thank you, Eddie. Yes, the better half is probably phrasing it improperly, but yes. So let's be clear, everyone. They don't want us on camera very often. Eddie's out already. Let's just stick to audio. But I'm really excited about today's session with Dr. Timbs. We've obviously been sort of we've been broing down on social media for a long time.
We have to meet sometime.
I know. We're Strava buddies. I mean, there's a lot going on here. But basically, hopefully we have some folks that have some questions for you, but I've certainly got some questions myself. But I want everybody out there watching to get a little bit of background about you and about your district. So if you could just start, give us some sort of the cliff notes of your district's Canvas journey, how long you've had Canvas, what grade levels, all that stuff.
Sure. I came to our district. I'm starting year 29 in my career, and I came to Johnson City in 2015. I'm around 21 years in administration, into a brand new role in Johnson City Schools, Instructional Technology Supervisor. And the superintendent at the time said, let's make this, what we dream it to be. And instructional technology, oddly enough, is not my background. My background is all curriculum leadership. So in 2015, came to the district, and in the spring of 2016, we knew that we needed a learning management system in order to move forward. We looked at a lot of different platforms, and it was a unanimous choice in our district at the time to select Canvas. So in early March of 2016, we actually trained our first 100 teachers. And we're a district of around 8,000 students, around 600 teachers. So we trained a sixth of our teachers in those early days on Canvas, and really started growing it from that point with a new program we started the next year where teachers applied to become a technology teacher leader in our district. And a big part of the teacher leader's role was to support this ongoing transition to a blended learning environment, a one-to-one environment. And of course, Canvas was a foundation of that. And fast forward to that date that we all talk about now, March of 2020. And at that point, we had around 70 active teacher leaders. Canvas was well embedded in our district. We were one-to-one in the vast majority of our grade levels, all the way down to third grade. And with the pandemic, like a lot of other districts I know, we had three main things in our corner that made things work for us. One was our teacher leaders and all the work that they had done to support their colleagues and train their colleagues over the previous years. They knew how to teach in a blended learning in a virtual environment. The second thing we had was a very supportive Board of Education that made sure we had devices in our hands. And the third thing that we had in our corner was Canvas. And the Canvas usage was already high in our district. And during closure in the spring, and then as we transitioned back into in-person learning last fall, we had approximately 35% of our students fully remote. Canvas was the backbone for us. So we have just signed back up for another 5 years with Canvas, and it is how we deliver professional learning now. It's the It's embedded with all of our professional development modules. It's how principals run classes for their teachers. We run classes for parents, and obviously we run classes for our students. So it's Canvas is huge for us in our district. But that's our journey from 2015 to 2021.
Awesome. There's a lot that I want to talk about within all of that. First of all, 2015, good for you. This is old hat for Johnson City. I think one of the things that I knew about already, and you mentioned it there, and I think is really valuable to share with folks watching today and watching later on, is the teacher leadership piece.
Sure.
Obviously, that's something I'm really interested in and passionate about. We've talked about it before.
Right. You've been part of our sessions.
Right, and I want to get into that. But I think it's important for folks who are in the early stages of Canvas rollout, initializing early rollout of that maybe for this fall. As a manager in the Center for Leadership and Learning, I get to see those people every single day.
Right.
I'm in sessions where folks are in those early stages. And I always tell them, you guys are so lucky that you're getting to sort of get off on the right foot with your rollout. And I want you to just speak to your teacher leaders, because you said it, 2015, that's a long time ago. And
it's
so
a long time ago.
I think a lot of people are not realistic about how long it takes to have the plan, but then actually have the plan play out to a stable environment, which is what you guys have there now. So talk a little bit about your teacher leader program and how important that's been.
So Marcus, I think when we originally started the teacher leader program, we knew we wanted to embed teachers in the building who we could train to lead this initiative. And, one thing that I would say, we did not start out with devices first. Sorry about that. Can you see me? There we go.
We see you.
Yeah. We did not start with devices first. We started with thinking about what we wanted to accomplish. So the first year, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, with being able to ask the why first. And we spent the entire first year of the teacher leader program asking why. Why did we want to transition to a blended learning environment? Of course, this is 2015, 2016 when we started this journey. And, we looked at the lessons from a lot of districts, most notably, Los Angeles, who bought devices first and then tried to decide how it would fit into curriculum and instruction. So those first 20 teacher leaders that we selected, we had, I was talking with someone this morning, I think we had more than 60 teachers apply for the first cohort, and we were able to select 20. They receive no pay. They meet on 5 Saturdays during the year. What they do receive is a ticket and all expenses paid to one national technology conference. So that was the hook that we had. But we spent that entire first year defining what we wanted this to look like in Johnson City before we bought one device, before we even adopted any of our digital learning platforms. That decision, that first year with those first 20 teacher leaders who then transitioned on to being embedded almost teacher technology coaches at the building level, and we've added 20 more teachers every year. That decision made all the difference in the world for us being able to have not just voices in our schools who are doing the work alongside their colleagues during this transition to a blended learning environment, but it also allowed us to have their voices with us as district leaders to help make these decisions along the way. It truly was a really collaborative process, and a process that involved a lot of voices and a lot of thoughts and a lot of very thoughtful selection of the platforms that we use. Fast forward again, we're just now kicking off cohort 6 this fall of our teacher leader program, and we have allowed a few of them from the earlier cohorts to cycle back through as mentor teacher leaders. And we had our after the initial year, we had our highest number of teachers apply to be part of this program. And why I mentioned that, 6 years into an educational initiative, we've all been around long enough to know in education that few things last more than a few years. They usually lose their impetus. This program has just continued to gain steam. And it's not because of anything we do at the district level. It's because of that capacity that we've built at the building level of teachers who know how to use technology to deliver instruction and to support creative use of technology where students are producing and creating, not just consuming technology. And that has continued to grow and blossom. And the teacher leaders grow the teacher leader program. And, you know, back to the original point about what this looks like, does it require a small investment of time and money at the district level? Absolutely. But how often do we get the opportunities to let teachers build the machine that will drive what they're doing in the classroom? And that's what a teacher leader initiative specifically focused on instructional technology has allowed us to do in Johnson City.
Yeah, and it is an amazing program, and that's why I wanted you to sort of celebrate that
Right.
because everything you said, not only the duration of time, the staying power, but again, as leadership, as an administrator, anyone out there, you can't do anything alone.
Right.
And I always
Right.
say to folks, no matter what it is that you're trying to start up or maintain within a district, it always takes, and I always call it, it needs to have a posse. You've got to have your posse of
Yeah,
people
we call it our
that are going to
tribe. You
do
have to
that.
have your
Yeah,
tribe.
yeah.
Right.
And so having those people does so many things. Number one, it's just on the surface level, more manpower, right? More manpower to accomplish larger tasks.
Right.
But then in addition to that, what I love about your program, and I think it's certainly a model that districts all over the country and probably all over the world could learn from, is that ownership piece. Because we are the teacher leaders and we are owning more of what's happening within decision making within our buildings, and that number continues to grow each year. That's the buy-in piece that I think is so hard for districts to accomplish. And you're trying to get folks to buy into whatever it is, and in this case Canvas and blended learning. You started properly with the why,
Right.
and got the mentality correct. Then you built the posse, you built your tribe. And then once others saw that ownership, saw that influence, and they did, I mean, you said there's no stipend here, but they do get to go attend a tech conference.
Right.
That again is very valuable because you are only enhancing the people in your district there. You know, they're
It's been
sparking new
huge.
ideas.
And I think too often we undervalue in education the investment that we make in sustained professional learning. And by sustained, I mean not just once in the summer, not just once when school starts, but these teacher leaders really got the benefit of this journey together across the entire school year on these Saturdays. And as they ventured out 1/3 at a time to these national conferences, they were able to come back and not just immediately share, but it grew into a summer technology academy in our district that hundreds of teachers attended every summer, and that even now we're prepping for next week. And because of lingering COVID concerns, we're having it at 11 school sites rather than congregating all together. But who's leading the initiative in those buildings with presentations and recorded sessions using Canvas Studio, which has been a huge
Oh yeah.
plus for our district? The teacher leaders are leading those days at their individual schools. And we probably have upwards of 60 presentations that have been recorded by teacher leaders and other teachers using Canvas Studio that teachers can watch on demand. So again, that's just
Nice.
another example of how Canvas has impacted our district with not just teaching, but also with learning.
Yes, I love that. And that sustainability is, I
Mhm.
think to me, that's the most impressive part. Like you said, having a plan that um, for leaders, you know, the plan can't be when you're having a meeting right now in July. And again, I see this every day. We're having meetings about our Canvas rollout at
Right,
said district
right.
in July. yes, the most urgent thing is where can we get, where should we be, day one, first semester, etc. But part of those meetings have to be that long term, which I do think I agree with you. That part isn't always as stressed as it needs to be able to have that staying power. So again, anybody, you find Dr. Timbs on
Please
Twitter.
reach out. I mean, we've
Yeah.
got, I will share everything from our interview applications to our, templates that we use. Anything that we have regarding teacher leaders, I will share with anyone.
I think that's why we get along so well, because everything you did is everything that I believe so strongly about. So it's just exciting to listen to.
It is.
Now, I want to transition a little bit. We kind of mentioned it, back to school, right?
Yes.
Yes. I've been having a heck of a time getting a hold of some K-12 folks over the last day. I've been trying to schedule some things, even next week, and everybody comes back and says, back in the office, or we're back, or something along those lines, or I've got PD and workshops and so forth. So we're in it. We are in it.
We had Camp Canvas yesterday in our district for new employee hires who came in and learned how to operate and use Canvas.
Nice. So let's talk about that for a second. So, 'cause that's another thing that we often struggle with in education. I've seen this. I've worked in a number of districts, and when we onboard teachers,
right,
whether they're brand new or just new to the district, I've yet to be in a district where onboarding was more than one day.
Right. It's hard.
So talk about Camp Canvas a little bit.
So Camp Canvas is something that we've offered for several years. I originally started offering it, but yesterday I was able to slip in the room and sit in the back and watch two very, very skilled teacher leaders offer Camp Canvas for a full day. And we've had several Camp Canvas sessions over the course of the summer. And out of our teacher leaders a couple summers ago grew the need for us to develop not just the Camp Canvas approach, but also rather than opening up a daunting blank class in Canvas, our teacher leaders came to us at the district. Why don't we develop some templates that we can go ahead and auto-populate into their classes? And I know a lot of districts do this already. It was a huge aha for us, a huge win, because now when the teacher leaders start new teachers with a template already in their course rather than a build your module here blank screen, it has been so powerful. And I walked in yesterday and watched, and everyone to us is coming to us now with either a little bit of maybe Google Classroom experience or another learning platform. So they're not starting exactly at ground zero, but watching those teacher leaders help these teachers get some of their content built by starting 50% down the road with a template has been huge for us. And we have been able to, I've watched exponentially the number of teachers who will add a teacher leader to their course so that teacher leader can come into their course and help them with some of their design and some of their approach to organization. And in fact, I've been in a group messaging strand today with our middle school, which is around 1,400 students, with the principal and all of her teacher leaders trying to decide based on parent feedback, what should our templates look like at our school this year? That thrills me to no end from where we were just a few years ago, or even before the pandemic, that principals are that embedded down in what should our classes look like that are not just student friendly, but they're also parent friendly. Who's leading that conversation? The teacher leaders are.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And you're right that unfortunately, and we've said this multiple times, we've talked about it in varying different avenues. The pandemic forced us to really recognize a lot of those flaws in our online blended learning, the flaws in design, but it's one of those, it was terrible. But I do think, and I think from the sounds of it, it's ultimately going to impact education for the better because of those types of conversations. Now, I want to talk briefly about templates. I'm with you. Exactly. I am so on board with that. It is a game changer.
It's a huge
because
game
you're
changer.
absolutely right. That ability to basically say, here's our baseline as a district or as a building. And I've been in conversations where, the template looks a certain way for certain grade levels, or buildings. There's a
Correct.
lot of different philosophies to that. One thing that I heard in a recent Canvas Leadership Institute was, again, new district, brand new, thinking about templates, because we were talking about that. And they talked about how they had so much transient student movement within their district. Kids would, their kid
Exactly.
A could be in 2 or 3 different elementary schools through the course of the year for
Right.
whatever circumstances. And so they really latched onto that template idea, because they said, look, we can say, here are the templates that are going to be used in K through 4 district wide. So when my first grader leaves one building and goes to another, he or she's got to learn a whole bunch of new things. But one thing they don't have to relearn is how to navigate in Canvas, because it's going to look
Right.
very much the same. And that's huge.
And that's very similar to our approach that we've used in our district with common elements. And one thing that we did last year, if there's any leaders listening, that was a game changer for us. We brought in all of our principals, all of our assistant principals, all of our district supervisors, anyone doing evaluations. And something that we had not done before, that as I look back now, why had I not done that? I added a role within Canvas on the back end for all of our administrators. And we taught them how to log in and navigate and have access to view only all the courses in their building, so that as they're doing the evaluation process, and this has been huge this year for us, because teachers have, even in-person instruction, they've moved so much of what they do to Canvas. And if you go into a classroom to do a 90-minute observation and you can't see what the students are seeing, you're sort of at a disadvantage. So we spent a half day training all of our administrators, anyone doing frustration, or anyone doing observations, to know how to go in, look at these courses, evaluate them from that standpoint. And we got so much good feedback from our leaders. We had focused so much on teachers' use of Canvas that we hadn't looked at principal, assistant principal use of Canvas. And that really impacted a lot of great conversation during the observation process for our teachers, whether they were fully virtual. In our district last year, we had dedicated virtual teachers, or whether they were blended in-person teachers. Having administrators have access to their classes and look at them through the instructional evaluation lens was great for us. So if you've not done that in your district, I would highly recommend that you train all of your administrators and give them the access to be able to go in and look at those courses.
Absolutely. And listen, if you're shorthanded on staff, which I just spoke to 90% of districts in the country, if you're feeling shorted and you don't have this group of teacher leaders installed yet in your district, again, shameless plug, this is exactly what we talk about with the Center of Leadership and Learning.
Right.
All right. What we do as an entity within Instructure is get the leadership in a district together and talk shop about how are we going to roll this out? How are we going to plan? All of the things you've just heard are things that we talk about. And it's not just thought leadership, but it's also actionable steps. And hey, like we started off, this topic was getting back to school. We're in it for sure. So speaking of back to school and going back to that for a second, do you guys have any initiatives for this year that are brand new going forward in the fall? And if so, what are some thoughts about how you're going to tackle that?
Absolutely. Well, in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, to move forward with any type of remote or virtual learning, your district had to either partner with an organization that offered that as a service, or you had to actually establish your own virtual school, which in Johnson City Schools, we did not have a standalone virtual school. So in January, our board actually established a 12th school, the Johnson City Virtual Academy. And we are launching our virtual academy this year with we're starting small, between 100 to 150 students who will be taught by Johnson City teachers, all of whom taught remotely last year, but who will be totally dedicated to teaching in a fully remote environment. And it has its own school number, its own school name. And we have a cooperative agreement with the middle school and the high school for those students to participate in athletics. So we are very excited about launching our own virtual school in our district and in growing that. And again, as you can imagine, Canvas is a big backbone of what we're doing there. The other piece that we're very excited about, we are continuing to leverage a lot of our federal money that I know all the districts are getting to move as many of our digital learning platforms to the district level as we can, to both narrow the number of platforms that we're using. But one big learning that we had through the pandemic was equity. When schools were subscribing to their own platforms and we had teachers teaching virtual students from multiple schools, they all did not have the same access. So we really came out of that and had an awareness moment of let's use this federal money that we're getting to leverage this time to provide the same digital subscriptions to all of our schools so that we can achieve equity across the district. We are going to very deeply train our teacher leaders this year in that narrow list of platforms that we're using. And we're also now narrowing the number of platforms that teachers have to learn and that parents have to learn. And we're really excited to see what happens when we're all using the same platforms across the district. So those are, Marcus, as we transition back to in-person learning for our district in just a couple of weeks, and look at where we're at in our district. That's some things that we're excited about.
Yeah, the virtual school, I feel
Yes.
like every time I'm on Facebook
Yes.
and Twitter and so forth, I'm seeing, they're popping up everywhere.
Right.
So
right.
that is a huge endeavor that I don't think,
Right.
a lot of folks really
Right.
grasp exactly what the weight of all that. The pandemic certainly, put a spotlight on issues that we currently
Yes.
have or had in education. But there's a place, I really truly believe there's a place for those virtual schools moving
Right.
forward, because there
Absolutely.
definitely is a population of learners who thrived within
And
those
that's not
environments.
exactly. A lot of our families just want increased flexibility, and
Right.
the virtual environment fits that bill.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Now, as a former coordinator of digital learning here in Indiana, when you start talking about streamlining platforms, eliminating the overlap, getting some consistency, creating that equity, now you're speaking my language, because
Right.
every
Right.
single district I've been at, I was one of the people that was looking at the list.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at this list
The
and I'm
list.
looking at what
Yes.
it is, what's the thing accomplished, who's using it, and then we get to have that lovely,
Right.
uncomfortable
Right.
conversation with, the one building who is all in on a particular platform,
Right.
but they're the only ones, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's where, for us let's face it, we're Canvas users. The Canvas is the spot because it gets to that equity piece. Not only are we creating equitable access, we're creating equitable learning experiences. Speak to that a little bit.
Sure. And one thing, again, as we learned through the pandemic, as we had to spin up very quickly, not all of our schools had the same platforms. They all had Canvas, so we had that in common, and we all had some tools with our Google Workspace that we all used. But we very quickly learned we've got to get our hands around the subscriptions, because we have 5 students who have access through their school and 10 students in this virtual class who don't, because they're from a different school. So 2 things have driven that from my colleague on the other side of the house. I'm the instruction side. My colleague, the technology director, on the other side. We're really, really focused on data privacy in our district right now. And we're not partnering with any vendors who cannot sign our district's multi-page data privacy agreement. And we've really had to start doing a lot of education with teachers about free platforms and free apps, and signing up without getting any district approval. So data privacy is huge for us. The other piece that we're really excited about, we've had a single sign-on platform for quite a while, but we've not had all of our platforms rostered. So we're now only adding into our single sign-on platform those partners who will fully roster with our student information system, which, as you know, Marcus, is huge for us on the back end. Because it just makes things seamless. So data privacy is something that we're really pushing with our teachers, and they're going to hear about at Tech Academy next week. And the other is the advantageous piece of being able to roster everything for our schools at the district level. Those two things alone, in addition to equity, have really driven our push to standardize things across the board. And you're right, there's been some difficult conversations with schools who they're the only schools using a particular platform. But again, we're very fortunate in our district. Our superintendent is very much behind this push. And when principals have this conversation, they come to the conclusion that, yes, it makes sense that we are all using the same platforms for consistency and for our teacher leaders who can get deeply trained in all those platforms.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So, God, I'm telling you, people, when I talk to Dr. Timbs, I get stoked, I get fired up. We're gonna finish off here with a little lightning round. I'm gonna hit you with a couple of questions.
Great.
And so, question one of the lightning round. I need a sound effect. Pew, pew, pew. When you weren't in a leadership role, what was the one thing that you were completely wrong about?
So when I was, and it's been a while, but when I was in the classroom, something that I was completely wrong about was budget. And I talk about this all the time. You know that budget is finite. It is not an infinite supply. And being told no as a teacher is hard to understand why sometimes. And I really make sure that in our district, we lead our teacher leaders through the why when things are funded and when they're not funded.
Yeah, when I hear the word budget, I just run the other direction. I don't want anything to do with it. So, but yeah. I mean, as a teacher, I was kind of the same way. Like, why can't I get blank? You've got some bucket of money hidden somewhere.
Right.
It's really not the case, people, as much as we want it to be. And that plays, I mean, this guy's a professional, folks, plays right into my next question. If money was no object, and there were no roadblocks in the way, what is the first thing you would do to improve learning within Johnson City schools?
Wow. So to improve learning in our district, if money was not an object, we would continue to offer our students the best devices that we can, because our teachers get the curriculum and the instruction piece. We have the platforms. And the other thing, Marcus, is to try to eliminate as much as we can the digital divide from when our students walk out of a school building that has internet access and wireless to homes where they do not have it. And even as closely knit as we are geographically in Johnson City, we still have areas that even with hotspots, students struggle with maintaining connectivity. And to me, at this point in time in 2021, and I've got my own children who are in grad school at this time, internet connectivity, access to high-speed internet should be a basic right that we give to our students in this country. And that's something, if money were not an object, that I would just want to blanket our city with connectivity, because with that connectivity comes access, and with that access comes equity.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to thank you for taking time out today. As we've already discussed, you're in it. You've got plenty of work to be doing, but I hope everybody was able to take some nuggets, some actionable steps as everybody gets back to school. This is obviously we live stream here. It's going to be out there on all the things. So I really hope everybody can take a look because there's a lot of great content here from Dr. Timbs. Eddie, I think we're all set. I've heard all of it, and I could stay on this call for hours.
Yeah, I love talking to you guys. You guys are great.
The people have other things. They're probably, I bet half the people out there right now are in their classrooms, bulletin boarding, nesting. They're doing all the things. So.
Yeah, my wife's a third grade teacher, and she left this morning, and school doesn't start for 3 weeks. So
my wife's a fifth grade teacher. She's moving things in her room.
Yeah, it's that time of year, right, David Timbs?
Exactly.
We appreciate you so much, Dr. Timbs, and Marcus. Thank you for taking over some of the Center for Leadership and Learning live streams. This is going to be fun, I think, over the course of the next few months as we talk about leadership. There is one thing that we can't go without shamelessly promoting, and that is the Panda Pros. Dr. Timbs, I'd love to get your take on this as an administrator. Support is probably the number one issue that we see as a company.
Absolutely.
The one thing that we feel like really helps and increases adoption, allows teachers to feel very comfortable in the tool. And our company has committed to giving free one-to-one coaching and support to every person that has a Canvas course if they sign up for this Panda Pros initiative. So what does that mean to your school and district?
That is so huge. And as you can imagine, this is going to be something that we push our teacher leaders into this year to become Panda Pros. We use support in our district all the time, but to have this opportunity, because I know firsthand, we originally brought Canvas into our district to conduct our training. And that's not an expenditure that everyone can invest in sometimes. So to have Canvas offer this is huge. And we're going to be pushing this hot and heavy in Johnson City schools this fall when school starts.
Yeah, for sure. The link is in the comments of all the stuff below, but we can't go without talking about it because I think it's going to help a lot of schools this year as they get into kind of that back to school mantra. And I know there are a lot of administrators that work in technology that look at this and say, man, this might take some stuff off of our plate. It might take some stuff off of our educators' plate if they can get, real world people to kind of coach stuff on a one-on-one basis. So as always, guys, thanks for joining the live stream.
Yeah.
20 more live streams coming up. Dr. Timbs, thank you. Marcus, thank you with the Center for Leadership and Learning. We will be back on the next one. We appreciate everybody joining us.
Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Good seeing you.